Imagine a world with no rich and no poor, a place where everyone contributes what they can, and in return, everyone receives what they need. There are no bosses, and there are no servants. People work together for the good of all, not for personal gain. The houses, the factories, the farms, they belong to everyone, collectively. In this world, the community decides what to produce and how to share it. This ensures that no one goes hungry, and everyone has a home. This is the simple, powerful dream at the heart of an idea that promised to change humanity forever. It is the idea of communism. This vision has captivated thinkers and revolutionaries for centuries. It presents a solution to the age-old problems of inequality and suffering. The core promise is one of fairness. It suggests that by removing the struggle for wealth, we can create a more cooperative and harmonious society. In this ideal system, human potential is not limited by the circumstances of birth. Instead, it is nurtured for the benefit of the entire community. It is a compelling picture, a world where competition gives way to collaboration, and where the needs of the many outweigh the desires of the few. But how could such a world come to be? The architects of this idea believed it required a radical transformation. First, society would have to get rid of the concept of private ownership over things that create wealth, like factories and land. This is known as the means of production. Instead, the community would own and manage these resources together. The goal is to eliminate the division between the owners who profit and the workers who labor. From this foundation, a new kind of economy would emerge. It would not be driven by markets, prices, or profits. Instead, it would be a planned economy. Experts and representatives of the people would carefully calculate what society needs. They would then direct resources to produce those goods and services. The intention is to be more rational and efficient than the chaotic nature of market forces. In theory, this would prevent waste, eliminate unemployment, and guarantee that essential needs are always met. In our journey today, we will explore this fascinating and controversial idea. We will look at communism not as a slogan, but as a detailed blueprint for a different kind of world. We will start by examining the theory as it was originally conceived. We will meet the thinkers who laid its foundations, Karl Marx, Friedrich Engels, and understand the core principles they championed. What did they mean by a classless society? And how did they imagine a world without private property or money? We will strip away the layers of political rhetoric to see the idea in its purest form. Next, we will trace the path from theory to practice. We will investigate how this grand experiment was implemented in the real world. History tells us that the results were often tragically different from the original dream. We will travel to the Soviet Union, Maoist China, the states of Eastern Europe. Here, we will uncover the reasons why the system so often faltered. We will explore the political challenges that arose. We will explore the economic challenges that arose. It is a story of immense ambition meeting an even greater complexity. But this is not just a story of governments and economies. It is also a story about people. Furthermore, we will confront the many myths and misunderstandings that surround communism. Is it always violent? Does it truly create equality? Does its failure in practice mean the original idea was entirely wrong? The story of communism is filled with hope, struggle, and profound disappointment. It raises fundamental questions about human nature, power, and the very possibility of creating a perfect society. By understanding why it looks so good on paper and why it so often failed in reality, we can better understand the world we live in today. Our exploration begins now, into the heart of an idea that promised utopia. Every great idea has its origin story, a moment when a powerful thought takes root. For modern communism, that story begins in the 19th century with two German thinkers, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. They were not the first to dream of a society built on equality, but they were the first to present it as an inevitable outcome of history. They backed that claim with a detailed theory. They lived during the Industrial Revolution, a time of immense change and upheaval. They saw new cities rising, filled with factories that churned out incredible wealth. But they also saw the deep and growing divide between the people who owned those factories and the masses who toiled within them for long hours and low pay. On one side were the factory owners, the bankers, and the landowners, a small group they called the bourgeoisie. This class controlled the means of production, the factories, the machinery, the land itself. On the other side was the vast majority of the population, the industrial working class, whom they called the proletariat. This group owned nothing but their ability to work. To survive, they had to sell their labor to the bourgeoisie in exchange for a wage. Marx saw this relationship as fundamentally exploitative. In their most famous work, the Communist Manifesto, published in 1848, they laid out their analysis and their call to action. They argued that capitalism was inherently unstable, driven by a relentless pursuit of profit, which inevitably led to the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. They believed this system contained the seeds of its own destruction, and that the workers, the proletariat, would be the agents of change who would bring about a new social order. Their ideas were revolutionary because they framed the struggle for a better world not as a moral wish, but as a scientific certainty. They studied history, economics, and society, and concluded that human history was a story of conflict between social classes. Just as feudalism had given way to capitalism, they predicted that capitalism would, in turn, be overthrown and replaced by a more advanced and just system, communism. This was not simply a dream of a perfect world. It was presented as the next logical step in the long march of human progress, a destination that history itself was heading towards. How would a communist society actually run day to day without markets, prices, or profits? The answer lies in a concept called central planning. A central authority would act as the brain of the nation's productive body. It would replace supply and demand with a comprehensive plan, often a 5-year plan. To make that plan, the committee gathers massive information. What resources exist? Steel, coal, skilled workers, farmland. Ministries set quotas for every state enterprise. Example: a factory ordered to make 10,000 tractors. Example: a collective farm ordered to deliver 50,000 tons of wheat. Every part gets marching orders from the top. This top-down chain is the core mechanic of a planned economy. Let's zoom in to see how this system was meant to work on the ground. Starting with a state-owned factory. The factory manager was an administrator tasked with fulfilling the plan's targets. Main goal: meet the quota. Achieving the quota could bring bonuses, public recognition. Failing could mean penalties, severe political consequences. Life on a collective farm was structured the same way. Farmers didn't own the land or the crops. They worked as collective members. The farm received a production quota. Often workers had a small private plot to grow vegetables or keep a few animals. Those plots were crucial for supplementing the food supply. One of the most appealing aspects of the communist model was its promise of comprehensive social welfare, providing essential services free of charge, as a right of citizenship. Healthcare, for example, was completely nationalized. The state owned all hospitals and clinics. Medical treatment was available to everyone without direct cost. Education followed a similar principle. Schools and universities were free and open to all, and literacy campaigns dramatically reduced illiteracy rates. Housing was also treated as a public utility. The state embarked on massive construction projects. Rent was heavily subsidized and extremely low. The trade-off for this security was a lack of choice. The state decided who got an apartment, what size it was, and where it was located. Section 4. The human cog in the machine. In this meticulously planned system, what was the expected role of the individual? The ideal citizen, a conscious, disciplined contributor to the great collective project. People were not just workers, they were members of overlapping collectives. The system promised a predictable life path. After free state education, the state would likely assign you a job, work in a state enterprise, live in state-provided housing, free health care, a state pension upon retirement. Cradle-to-grave security eliminated major economic anxieties. For many, the trade-off, giving up personal freedom for economic security, was central. But this mechanical vision required near-perfect information and unwavering cooperation. Individuals were expected to find fulfillment as small but essential cogs. The theory was elegant, like a beautifully designed engine, but real, unpredictable humans as cogs made the machine behave unexpectedly. Section 1. The Information Black Hole. The central planners faced an impossible task. In the absence of a market, there was no simple way to know what people actually wanted or needed. A market economy uses prices as signals. Without prices, planners were flying blind. A mistake at one point in the chain could cause massive disruptions elsewhere. The ripple effects were enormous and unpredictable. The information that did travel up the chain was often distorted. Factory managers had every reason to mislead planners. This lack of accurate feedback created chronic shortages and massive surpluses. Citizens waited in long lines for basic necessities, while warehouses filled with unwanted products. In a system where survival was guaranteed and personal profit was abolished, what would motivate people to work hard or to innovate? The result: low productivity, apathy, and poor workmanship. Success judged by quantity, not quality. If a nail factory's quota was measured by tonnage, the manager might produce a few enormous, useless nails to meet the target weight. Innovation was risky. Safer to stick to old, reliable methods, even if inefficient. This led to economic stagnation. On collective farms, the incentive problem was even more acute. In contrast, the tiny private plots were cultivated with incredible diligence, demonstrating the pull of direct personal benefit. The communist revolution promised to create a classless society. However, in practice, a new and powerful hierarchy quickly emerged: the nomenklatura. They became a new ruling class, enjoying privileges unimaginable for ordinary citizens. They had access to special stores, superior housing, exclusive hospitals. This created deep cynicism. Corruption became an unavoidable part of daily life. Personal connections and bribes were essential for getting things done. This concentration of power led to widespread political repression. The dictatorship of the proletariat had transformed into the dictatorship of the party. Communist states faced intense hostility from the capitalist world. The arms race forced them to devote a huge portion of resources to military spending. The machine, so beautifully designed on paper, had broken down completely in the real world. One of the most persistent ideas about communism is that it creates a society of perfect equality, where everyone is exactly the same. This is a common myth. The theoretical goal was to eliminate class-based inequalities. In practice, they replaced the old aristocracy of wealth with a new political aristocracy. During the transitional phase, wages were not equal. The state set wage scales based on profession, skill level, and productivity. In a world of chronic shortages, access to goods and services mattered more than salary. This created informal inequalities that had little to do with money. It is easy to lump all communist countries together, but this is another oversimplification. The communism of the Soviet Union under Stalin was vastly different from that of Yugoslavia under Tito, or China after the reforms of Deng Xiaoping. Yugoslavia introduced a system of workers' self-management, a more decentralized and market-oriented form of socialism. China's journey represents the most dramatic divergence, combining state direction with the dynamism of capitalism. Because of this history, many believe that communism is inherently violent. However, it is important to distinguish between the actions of specific regimes and the core theory. In many Western European countries, communist and socialist parties have operated within democratic frameworks for decades, committed to achieving change through the ballot box. Given the catastrophic results, it is tempting to conclude that the original idea is completely flawed, so the case is closed. However, the core concerns that motivated Karl Marx, extreme inequality, exploitation, have not disappeared. The communist solution may have failed, but the problems it sought to address remain very real. First and foremost, it serves as a powerful cautionary tale about the dangers of utopian thinking. The pursuit of a perfect heaven on earth has, at times, created a very real hell. It teaches us the value of humility, gradual change. It highlights the importance of human incentives and individual freedoms. A fair assessment requires balance. Acknowledge the vision that inspired it, but also look with clear eyes at the catastrophic failures and the staggering human cost. The story of communism is not a simple tale of good versus evil. It is a complex and vital lesson from our collective past. By learning from it, we gain the wisdom to navigate the present and to build a more humane future.